Today on Soma Says, I'm joined by Krishna Avalon, a subconscious and somatic therapist who helps women release long-held patterns of stress and self-doubt. Krishna's work blends science and soul to help us reconnect with our bodies, heal emotional blocks, and step into midlife with freedom and clarity. Welcome to Soma Says. You have successfully guided over 30,000 patients across 22 years, which is very impressive. What first led you to combine acupuncture, subconscious therapy, and somatic healing into one integrated approach?
Acupuncture was my first love in this life. So I've been doing that the longest for 24 years now and practice that with so much love and joy and gratitude, thankfully successfully for 17-ish years before pandemic hit. And I had already been really wanting to grow. For me, it's really important to stay inspired. I was already listening to podcasts and reading books that had to do with the subconscious mind, where we create 97% of our habits. So I became obsessed because for me, it was a missing piece. This is why I hadn't been able to change my life in the ways that other people seem to so easily do. Or this is why things felt very discordant inside, because my conscious mind was trying to do one thing, but my subconscious beliefs were very contracted about myself and what I believed and thought I was worth. And so starting to work with those was starting to change my own life. And then when pandemic hit, like so many, I was like, what am I going to do? I had to close my clinic for 9 weeks. Maybe I can train in that work that I'd been really interested about. And I did. Started training in a process called Psych-K during pandemic, which took place actually here in this house. I ended up buying my teacher's house, and she taught here for 12 years. And my life started to change. But then when I started offering this work to the patients I was already working with to see what it would happen for them, just the feedback I was getting without even having to ask was incredible. And this work is so simple and easy that I was like, okay, this is what I want to focus on. And honestly, it was something much higher than me. I would say God that led me into acupuncture, led me to the other formal mental health framework I've trained in as well, called internal family systems. So what I find is that it's the healing the world is asking for. And I'm an artist in healing and a creator. And I just think that most of the people that come to me need a combination of things. And I'm able to offer things that help people reach their goals very quickly. So long answer, but there are a lot of parts that led me to being where I am now.
Okay. And I definitely wanted to talk about Psych-K. I think it's fascinating. But before we talk about that, what do you think that most people misunderstand about the subconscious mind and how it shapes our daily lives?
I think that for a lot of people, we believe that healing from things that have been very difficult and traumatic is going to be arduous, hard work. Like we have this programming like, oh, it's taken me 40 years of this way of being that I don't like. It's going to take a long time to undo that. And I think what people might misunderstand is because the subconscious does work with our beliefs, our habits, and behaviors, that it's going to be this big, long process to peacefully unattach, is what we say in Psych-K, and go and have a new experience. And then to create the subconscious programs that we want, it doesn't have to take a long time. This is very different than conscious mind, like regular talk therapy, because that was working with the conscious mind. And that takes so much longer and so much effort to make change from or move on from.
You've talked about the connection between the conscious and the subconscious mind. What does that alignment look like in your practice?
I think that we're all trying to make so many changes in our lives, rule the world with our conscious mind. We need to intellectually understand and have awareness. It really is the subconscious, though, that does the heavy lifting and the deep excavating, like when we are trying to heal and move on. And a lot of people don't know that they are trying to rule the world with their conscious mind, and they don't understand why it's so much work, or they're hitting resistance or not growing the way that they want to. And It's because you're not working with your subconscious. It could be so much quicker and so much easier.
I often find that the subconscious, for women at least, comes out late at night, right about when they're going to sleep or trying to go to sleep. And a lot of times that's when my patients tell me, and a lot of the suppressed anxiety and feelings may have repressed during the day often come out at nighttime. Do you find the same thing? And do you think that the subconscious has anything to do with that?
I love that question. I haven't been asked that one before. What I would say is that our subconscious mind is most receptive to making changes during that sleepy time at night, getting ready to fall asleep, and before you're totally awake in the morning. I also think that when it's quiet, when we're trying to go to sleep at night, that's when we'll be aware of the things that we've been holding. It shows us too where we are in our subconscious stress. So yeah, I think to your point, that would happen for a lot of people at night.
A lot of people feel stuck in repeating their emotional and relational patterns. How does the subconscious work begin to unlock these cycles?
Psych-K is a really simple process. The way I would guide you is, that's what is stressing you out right now. Is most of your headspace. Where are you getting stuck, hitting resistance? And it can be your deepest, darkest trauma, or it could just be something annoying that happened at work that you can't stop thinking about. The way I guide you is, let's pick that thing that you can't stop thinking about. And you would, after we muscle test to get in clear communication with your subconscious, you would sit in what we call a balance, where you focus on that stress. And in that time, you're not trying to fix it or avoid it or talk yourself into what you want. You're really sitting with that. What's that like for you when you're feeling so stuck in that thing? Some people sit there for a minute, some people 20, and it doesn't matter. We sit there until we notice what we call a shift, which can be felt physically or experienced emotionally, mentally, visually. And then that means when that shift happens that your brain has peacefully unattached gone in a new direction. A new neural pathway's been created, and you can now have a new experience instead of staying stuck in that same feedback loop, same thoughts, same behavior. It's often very subtle, but it's also very powerful. So if you're all of a sudden not thinking about that thing that you couldn't stop thinking about before, that's amazing. If you're all of a sudden doing a thing that you just couldn't make yourself do before, whether it's working out after work, whether it's choosing healthy food, whether it's choosing tea instead of whatever it is for you, all of a sudden you're just doing it and you're like, oh my God, I haven't been able to do that before. So sometimes people don't even realize how far that they've come in one single balance until I ask them, oh, have you been able to go for that walk every morning? And they're like, yeah, actually I have. That's how you would notice that you were no longer that.
Okay.
Working with the subconscious. And I feel like all of us, any person I've ever met in some area of your life, you're contracted and expanded, or you're stuck in a past wound, or you have some stress. And then the other direction I love to go with people is, what do you want? So we might do a couple of, let's help you unattach from some stress. And now let's do a balance for what you want in this life. And we create that program in your subconscious so that it's possible. Because if you don't have that belief or behavior, that program running in your subconscious, you won't be able to create your life from that place. It's just true. So this just makes it so much easier. And then you can use other things to reinforce the new program and the new neural pathway that you just created.
So you mentioned some of the ways that you help people, and you mentioned Psych-K and internal family systems, IFS. Can you get more into that and educate my audience as to what those two things are?
The Psych-K, I don't love the name, but it was created by a psychologist. Psychology and kinesiology is where we use the muscle testing to your subconscious. Get it clear yes, clear no. Ask your subconscious, is it safe to balance for this right now? Take you through the balance. And there are many balances in Psych-K, but we really work with two primarily. And then muscle tests after the balance to make sure the shift has happened or the new program has been created. And that is it. And when you have someone who can reflectively listen to you, you feel seen, you feel heard, you feel safe, space is being held. But if you have somebody who like has some intuition and sees you and hears you, like it's going to be so much more magical because that person's going to understand like how to guide you maybe to your blind spots or create your very best words for that new create. So that's that work. We usually get to 2, 3, maybe 4 balances in a session, which is quite a bit because your brain is different literally after every single balance. And then internal family systems, I was led to, I swear, again, by God. And I didn't really know what it was when I started the training, but it came up in my field like 3 different times from 3 different people who I really respect as practitioners. And then when I was in the training, I was like, oh, that's because this is the type of deeper inquiry actually need to be with the parts of themselves that need attention so that they can, those parts of us that need our attention, they will act very extreme in their expression. And that can be, you name it. It can be overworking, anger, criticism, judgment, self-soothing with numbing or alcohol or spending money, checking out on Netflix. No parts of us are bad. They were created, put into their roles to help us survive. And so the premise of that work is to get you, it's soma, and what would be your self energy, we call it. It's like the you that's already compassionate, loving, wise, playful, open, present, courageous. We get you in relationship with those parts of you that need your attention. And you often find out that, oh, maybe they're 3 to 5 years old and they went into that role to help you survive. And then when we understand that, we don't hate on those parts of us so much anymore. We're not so frustrated with them. We don't ask them to go away, which is what a lot of people, we probably will meet new parts of you every time you have a session. I do. The people I work with do, but it's just, wow, if you can speak to the part of you that is overworking or critical or judgmental or angry, tell it that it's not alone. Ask it what it needs, what it wants to. Sometimes you're just hanging out with a part, letting it know it's not alone. And then your entire system relaxes so completely just from being with this part of you that's been trying to get your attention, but also you survive as well. And then when those parts get to trust you and know who you are, they do what we call unblend. So they start to give you space and they become less extreme in their expression and they can go into roles that are actually healthier for you. And they can rest. They've probably exhausted and need rest. And then we also have exiles, which are the parts of us that were abandoned or left alone or deeply hurting. They can come out and unburden. So you can imagine how powerful that is. And also it's so simple. And we really slow it down in IFS, which is not something that we do either.
What are some of the most surprising parts that people discover within themselves when they're going through this process?
The IFS process?
Yes.
I think even really skeptical people find parts of themselves that are very tender and vulnerable, maybe not even like a human form. Like it might not be someone that was 5 years old. It might be like a being of light, or it might be an animal form. And that surprises people. You are opening up parts of yourself, connecting in ways and so your system becomes very open. And even for me, I mean, I'm often in like another dimension, calling in spirit guides. Like people take psychedelics for this kind of stuff and you don't need to. You can use something like, even sometimes with Psych-K, people in their shifts through the balances, they'll have visions come through. They get very surprised for what they see within themselves and what's available to them that they don't usually feel connected to or open to.
Okay. I interviewed a kinesiologist who works in the UK. Her customers are women who are going through menopause. And we did talk about kinesiology, but for the purpose of this podcast, can you educate us as to what kinesiology is?
Yeah, kinesiology is muscle testing, and we can do it virtually, which surprised me as well. But if we were in person, in Psych-K, we do it together. So I'm not doing it to you and deciding the response. Like most people have had that experience, and I thought muscle testing was stupid. But in Psych-K, we do it together, and the person who's going through the balance, they decide what their yes and their no is. So the reason that it works is because you can't lie to the muscles and you can't lie to the subconscious. So your body would be relaxed and your chin would be parallel to the ground and your eyes would be looking down. And I would have you choose an arm and I'd ask you some questions. And then as I do, I'd say, be strong. And I'd try to push on your wrist. And if your wrist was strong and you could hold it up, that's your yes. And if it was no and you couldn't hold it up, that's your no. When we're doing it virtually, I'm simply asking to muscle test on your behalf, and it works as well. People's minds are sometimes blown because I'd be saying, say, my name is Soma, and you would say that and you'd have a strong response. And then I would say, my name is Josh, and I would press on your wrist and it would be weak. And no matter how hard you try to keep it up, you can't be strong to that response because that's not your name. So it's, again, very simple. And then you sit in what we call a whole brain posture for the balance, however long until that shift happens. And then we muscle test afterwards to just make sure we're complete and the balance has happened.
One of the fascinating things that I've learned about you is that you integrate both Psych-K and energy modalities alongside neuroscience. How do you balance the science and the spirituality of feeling?
Yeah, it's really interesting because some of my teachers like Bruce Lipton or Dr. Tara Swart, they were neuroscience people before their spirituality. Maybe not Dr. Tara because she was raised Indian and it was part of her upbringing. But for me, I definitely was a more spiritual being, more connected to nature than science. But neuroscience for me is fascinating. So for me, like getting the psychology degree right now, just to make this work more available to people, was more of a philosophy until very recently. And my connection to nature and to spirit is much, much stronger. But neuroscience is fascinating and it's real. And the information that's coming out with that science is extraordinary. And I think, of course, AI is going to try to mimic that and do things, but we're always going to want human connection, I hope.
Yeah.
Eye contact and touch and space holding and not always just needing to be validated like AI would do for you.
Yeah.
Show you where you're stuck and wanting to grow.
Yeah, that's a current deficit in AI. And obviously, it's not the same thing as the human connection. Do you see an AI coming into this in terms of what you're doing, or is it already there as far as?
Worse, because I am like, oh, I'm already a therapist. I'm literally doing it because I see the need and I want this work to be more accessible to patients so they can submit to their behavioral health benefit. I already know I have very smart women in my life who are like, oh yeah, I asked AI last night for some advice on my relationship. I'm like, wow, I understand the appeal, but also like, it's just there to validate you. It's going to challenge you, maybe for a person in crisis and they need something and they're just drawing from whatever they can find. I get that appeal, but just like data watches and everybody watches I just believe as human beings, we're meant to be here to connect.
I agree with you. I think there's some concerning things that I think we've already heard about people who use AI or ChatGPT as their therapists and some of the bad things that can happen as a result of it. So I do agree with you. Some people hesitate around energy work. So how do you help your skeptics understand that the real physiological changes that happen in somatic and subconscious healing?
Yeah, I think it's easy to notice when your body is clearing energy. So sometimes when people are sitting in that balance with Psych-K and they're focusing on that stress, they might feel nauseous. They might feel usually I feel a bunch of tension in my neck and shoulders release. That's my shift. But when all of a sudden they don't feel nauseous anymore, their heart's no longer racing, or the 30-year back pain they've had goes away, our bodies hold our stories. So if you have the right inquiry to be with those parts of you, again, that are uncomfortable, which could be pain, just make sense. Because again, you can talk through things with your conscious mind and your top mind therapy, but it is your body that holds your stories. So having this kind of somatic work to be aware of what's going on, but also to be able to notice how your body will shift through these processes is pretty fascinating. And a lot of the IFS, when we're first dropping into that model, what you are noticing is what's happening in your body. I don't always say energy work or energy healing,
Okay.
but in Psych-K, there are aspects of some of the balances that are very much energy healing. And it doesn't matter because you can be skeptical. The proof is in the pudding. Did you experience change in your life after this? And the answer is always yes.
Yeah.
That's good. I don't to try to prove anything.
Yeah, of course. So for my listeners who are seeking change, for someone who's listening right now who feels anxious, who feels burnt out, or they feel disconnected, where can they start today?
You can do things for your subconscious mind on your own. You can certainly listen to binaural beats. So on YouTube or Spotify, where I would go, typing in binaural, binaural, that so much there for helping your brain get into the theta or even the delta state where you're very relaxed and can more receptively change to what you want. So you can listen to things definitely first thing in the morning before you go to sleep. And you could just sit there and imagine if you don't know how things are going to play out, because everyone's so afraid of the unknown these days. Not everyone, but people.
Yeah.
Not how you want it to feel then. And while you're listening to those theta binaural beats, just imagine if you want to feel more peace, you want to feel more connection, presence, love, support, stability, safety. That's what you imagine. And you can, if you want to make a visual presentation for your phone or your laptop, the subconscious mind likes visuals more than it does words. Save information for our nervous systems and our subconscious in all the ways: sight, sound, touch, smell. And so using the other senses that you have to take in that kind of information. So theta brainwave stuff, listen to it. How do you want to feel? Make visuals of that. Put it on at anywhere you can see it regularly. And just know too, how do I want to feel in my life today? And just ask yourself that. That's a really good start. If you feel stuck, if you feel anxious, most of the time we're putting our awareness outside of ourselves on what's wrong, what problem needs to be solved. And that's what we were taught mostly as children to gauge our safety. That's what empathy is like, feeling the response and the experience of other people. But then we take it on as our own. And so you want to practice bringing that awareness back to yourself and be like, what do I need? How do I want to feel? And you can start there. And that's basically what I teach all day, every day in my work, is bringing people back into their own energies, the clarity and the brilliance of their own beings, letting go of the stuff that's not theirs to hold, and letting go or saying no to things that aren't for you without guilt as well. It doesn't make you a selfish person or a bad daughter or a bad mom or a bad wife to bring your awareness to yourself and what you need. It could inspire relationships with yourself and with everyone. You know how to do that.
What's a small daily practice that you can recommend to my listeners to help bring the subconscious patterns more into their awareness?
I'd say for me, my non-negotiables are turning my phone off an hour before bed, doing things that help me feel the way I want to feel. Because again, what do you want? You got to create some time to just check in with yourself. A lot of times I'll ask people what they want and they don't even know. So that's a really nice time to let go of your day, but also to, again, practice what do I want and coming back into your energy. I love to go for walks with my dog and leave my phone at home. You could do that. You could also just listen to those binaural beats. You could even look at your life and notice where you are stuck, just so that, and you want to consider what direction are you trying to go. Those are just the basics that some people don't even know. They're just feeling dysregulated and anxious.
Can you share a story of someone that transformed, that moves you, where this person found deep freedom through the type of work that you do?
There are so many examples I could give, but what I love to work with especially is when people have been in talk therapy for so long, still triggered or avoidant or taking pharmaceuticals, still angry about stuff that they've been for a long time. And then they come in here and they have a couple of sessions, and even their husbands or their therapists are like, who are you? You are so different, and not reacting and getting mad and puffed up at those things that would really trigger you before. All of a sudden, you're just able to like pause, respond, stay in your energy, have peace, and have space for listening. So I think, yeah, there are many examples I could give you, but the favorite people to work with are the ones who tried all these things, or they're over therapized and they come do just a couple sessions of subconscious therapy, and they're finally able to move on from that thing, or they're able to create life the way they want it to be. And they haven't been able to.
A lot of my listeners are doctors and other kind of healthcare practitioners. And so one question that I wanted to ask you is, how do you personally stay grounded?
Self-care practices, my devotional practices, my meditation, that stuff is non-negotiable for me. I'm not like 30 and trying to teach people and take people through things that I haven't been through myself. I know how I want to feel in my life and in my practice. Just before here, I went for that walk in the rain this morning with my dog for 45 minutes. I eat clean food. I hydrate. I meditate every morning. I definitely do breath work when I have a chance. I spend time in nature, off grid, away from people, because nature shows me and reminds me that I am more than enough, that I am overflowing with everything that I need, with abundance, with life, with beauty, with joy, with co-creation. So yeah, you can tell when you're just talking with someone and they're resourced and they're in their energy, and that really helps people feel safe, whether they know it or not. That's why people come back to work with me even 20 years later. So
yeah. What does healing mean to you now after so many years of guiding others through it?
I think what reminds me and gives me a lot of solace is that even when I wish that maybe things were even better than they are now for myself, I remember how far I've come. And I remember that as a spiritual being, it's not just this present moment, space and time. Like, we are doing our work and making differences in that ripple effect for our ancestors, for all beings throughout space and time. And that's what I believe as a spiritual being. It's what resonates and makes sense for me the most. And that brings me a lot of peace, because it's not just here and now. We do have this beautiful life, but also as a soul, like, this is a blip in time.
If you could talk to my listeners about one affirmation or belief to reprogram for today, what would it be?
That you are worthy and deserve of the best, that this love that life has to offer, that it's not something that you have to earn or prove that you're worthy of, like you just already are. And if you created that belief alone, you would find a lot more joy probably in the present moment. And it doesn't have to be those big gigantic life changes. It can just be like noticing the rose that just popped out in your garden, knowing that we are worthy of that, and not always looking for the next thing or looking outside of ourselves for whatever's better than what we're actually experiencing in this present moment. It's very helpful. So yes, know that you are worthy of the best that this life has to offer just by being here. You don't have to earn it. It doesn't have to take 20 years to work towards it either.
You mentioned earlier in the podcast that you bought this space from your teacher. And so was this person inspirational for you, or are there other people who transformed how you see healing?
Yeah, I love that you tuned into that, because when I was hearing about Psych-K and heard that Bruce Lipton, who wrote the biology of beliefs, this was his favorite way to work with the subconscious, and it helps him finish writing that book, actually. That's when I was like, oh, I want to go have a session of that. And then back in the day, I was like, I wonder if anyone in Portland's doing it. And there was only one person, and it was my teacher, and she owns this house. I went and had a session with her. To be honest, I did not feel any different afterwards. For me, that was because she wasn't my space holder. I didn't feel seen and heard for her. To her credit, she had a lot going on at that time. Father was dying. But again, for me, like I need to feel safe, seen, and heard. And I just wasn't. That space wasn't held for me. She was definitely my teacher. And she is a badass human being. She's incredible. She's very inspiring. I ended up buying this place because I had just, during that last training with her, just found out my daughter was going to go to a private independent school up the street. And I needed to figure out how I was going to make that work. So they were living across town. And we were separating from her dad. And that's when my teacher was like, oh, I'm getting ready to retire and move to Mexico. But we just left it up to the universe. And it was a funny story because I'd forgotten about it and thought she'd already moved to Mexico. When I listed my house, I thought it was going to sell immediately because everyone said it was going to, and it didn't. It was horrible. But then I listed a few months later and I got 3 offers for cash that were like 100,000 over what I was asking for it. And was thinking I was going to move all these things. And then I went and looked at my email and realized my teacher had sent an email like 3 weeks prior being like, oh, I'm going to sell my house. And I was like, oh, I thought you already left. I think I'm going to actually look to buy it. I don't know if I can afford your place, but it was funny because she had tried to list as well. And it was a time when the market was super hot to sell and neither one sold their houses when we meant to. There were definitely reasons for that looking back, but it's just really beautiful how it aligned that this house was meant for me. And then that she taught here for 12 years and I did 3 of the trainings there. But at the moment, it's like all the work that now I know how to do with myself and I get to see happening with people every day.
So you said she wasn't your space holder. So when did you find that? And was that the moment where it made you realize, okay, this is something that I want to continue with?
That's a great question because I didn't feel different after that session, but that was maybe a year and a half or something before pandemic hit. And then when pandemic hit, because I knew I wanted to train in it. I'd heard other people who had such great results with it. And I was like, I knew I wanted to train in it. And so I just trusted my gut. I trusted the alignment. So she was teaching here during pandemic. So it worked out really well.
If you had to choose one word that describes your work, which word would it be? And would your patients, your customers see it that way also? Do most of them experience growth, or do you think that they would, or maybe perhaps they've described it to you in terms of the changes that they've been through? What words have they used with you?
Definitely transformational, definitely unstuck, empowered, right? When you let go of old stories and limitation, and then you get to actually just create lives like you want it to be. You get to let go of any victim story you might still be in and just choose the life you want instead. You're just always left people to hear, even that one person, for this to land with that you really are a limitless creator of your life. If I have been able to transform the places I came into this world needing to navigate, you absolutely can too. And you are already deserving of that. Like, even with all the tragedy and the chaos and the horribleness of the world, when there's an option to choose love or beauty or joy, empowerment, wouldn't you want to do that? That's an option for you. If it's an option, choose it.
If my audience wanted to look for you, your website, any social media handles, where would they find you?
Yeah, I'm pretty old-fashioned in that way. It's just my name. Krishna Avalon is my website. There's so much information on there. If you have more questions, you could set up a free call as well. If you have things you want to know more specifically, you can reach out on Instagram. I'm not always online, but I do love connecting. So please say hello, and probably people find me on LinkedIn as well.
This was awesome.
Thank you. You asked questions that people hadn't asked before, and I get to speak a lot. So that was fun.
Thank you to Krishna Avalon for reminding us that healing begins when we reconnect with the wisdom of our bodies. To learn more about her work, visit KrishnaAvalon.com. And if this conversation inspired you, please share Soma Says and leave a review. It helps more women step into midlife with confidence and calm.